Hello, everybody, and welcome to the live show of the conspiracy, the Las Vegas conspiracy. It is something that. Oh, hold on. Hello. Okay. Now, I want to open this up enough so that the live chat is open because I do want to see when you guys start to post things so that I can. Alright, I don't know what's going on with this. Okay. Well, it only looks screwy for those that are seeing this after it isn't live. But there are a few things that I want to point out before I get into the websites that are in the description bar below. You guys can check them out if you want. I'm going to be referencing them in this. But the first thing I want to draw to your attention are a few pictures that I had found, and it's something that I'm going to. This is one that I had entitled "Here We Go Again," or "Here We Go," because this is along the lines of the conspiracy theory idea, and it pretty much says, in case you can't read it, the LVMPD, Las Vegas Police, knows the motive behind the attack, but the FBI will not allow us to release the motive because it implicates the FBI in an illegal arms deal and supplying arms to ISIS terrorists within the U.S. borders. This is a wild conspiracy theory, but Stephen Paddock was an undercover FBI agent who participated in multiple illegal arms deals in the Las Vegas area in a gun running entrapment scheme similar to the Fast and Furious. I do not like how these people try to ride fictional movies as if that somehow relates. But Paddock thought he was engaging in another routine arms transfer, but ISIS had learned about the entrapment scheme and Paddock's true identity. They killed him and carried out the massacre, then fled the scene. Everything is being kept under extreme wraps because, one, armed ISIS terrorists are still at large, and two, it's very embarrassing to the FBI that they don't want their scheme to become public knowledge. This person says, I'll be posting further information throughout the day. People with the Las Vegas police are disgusted and are pushing for this information to be released to the public. Well, then there is this one. And you notice how it draws a connection to pretty much 9/11. Strange moments in missing video evidence history. 2001, the 85 surveillance cameras failed to capture even 1 second of video of the Boeing 747 crashing into the Pentagon. And 2017, 2,000 surveillance cameras failed to capture even 1 second of a man carrying in 47 guns, ammo, cameras, and 2 shooting platforms. Huge coincidence, or are they hiding something? I think it's some of it goes a bit extreme in the conspiracy aspect, but the aspect of arms is definitely the number of guns and ammo and getting past security and so forth. That does strike me as really strange. Then there is this one. He's the perfect patsy for this crime. Now, I recognize you might not be able to read this, so pretty much I'll read it to you. Everyone that knows him is shocked because there's no indication that he would do anything like this. Maybe he didn't. Maybe you're supposed to think it could be anyone, so you will approve domestic spying on everyone. Maybe this will finally help them pass the gun laws they so desperately crave. Maybe this event will be used to take your freedom and create a bigger police state. Or maybe some old guy with no training or motive pulled this off all by himself. Those are things that I find interesting. But what really I find compelling is when we get into the aspect of, and let me move this to the side so that I can get into. First, I'm going to show you. Let me bring this over to there. Okay. First is gun instructor destroys leftist hysteria. This is something I found very amusing.
All right, everybody. Just want to make one thing clear. This is a gun, okay? Just like any other gun, it's a gun. If I choose to take this gun and assault somebody with it,
scary.
clear? Then it becomes an assault gun or an assault rifle. This is a golf club. If I take this golf club and I assault somebody with it, then this becomes an assault club. You see how assault is a verb, not a noun. Assault club, when I use it to assault. Assault rifle, when used to assault. Thank you.
I got a kick out of that because it is so true. But then we have this. And it has 16 unanswered questions. And it's something that I find quite interesting. And let me just pull this and arrange things so that okay. It's not going to be quite as pretty, but let me just the aspect of that website. Here are the things that are mentioned with that in the different points. Number one is the photos of Stephen Paddock at the hotel room have been leaked, and one of those photos appears to show a suicide note. Why hasn't the public been told what is in the note? Then there is number two. Were there additional shooters? Taxi driver. Okay, before I get into that, I'm just going to close that out. Were there additional shooters? A taxi driver reportedly captured a video of an automatic weapon being fired out of a low-level window. A video from another angle shows footage similar and the aspect of a second shooter. Number three, why were law enforcement authorities discussing another suspect on the fourth floor, and why is the mainstream media not talking about this? Number four, as John Rappaport has pointed out, it would have been impossible for Stephen Paddock to kill and wound 573 people in less than 5 minutes of shooting with the kind of weapons that he is alleged to have used. So why won't law enforcement authorities acknowledge this fact? Number 5. How in the world did Paddock get 42 guns or more and several thousand rounds of ammunition into his hotel room without anyone noticing? And how did someone with no military background and wasn't a gun guy at all operate such advanced weapons? Because we are being told by the mainstream media just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I really like how the natural news has made this point. I don't know what natural news is, but anyway. Number 7. Why was one woman telling the crowd that they were going to die 45 minutes before the attack? That is something I had not heard, but it would definitely be getting my attention as to why there was somebody reportedly announcing that everybody was going to die 45 minutes before it started. Number 8. Why did law enforcement authorities take 72 minutes to get to Stephen Paddock's hotel room? That is a damn good question. Number 9. Why did Paddock wire $100,000 to the Philippines last week? Number 10. Why was Paddock's girlfriend in the Philippines when the attack took place? Did she know what was going to happen? Number 11. Was Paddock on antidepressants, like so many of the other mass killers in past years have been, which is something that I find quite interesting. Not so much that because we don't know if he was on those or not. However, to say that many of the shooters that we have seen in the past have been on antidepressant medication and so forth, it is something that I personally find interesting as to why why so many would have been on antidepressant drugs. Number 12. Why was ISIS so eager to take responsibility for this attack, and why was the FBI so quick to dismiss that connection? This was one I had come across right after this attack had happened. And I initially dismissed it, but then I thought about it. And it was like, wait a minute. No one from ISIS came forward and tried to take credit for Sandy Hook or Columbine or any of these other shootings. So why this one? If they were just going to try and take credit for something to hype up hysteria or to brag about something, why wouldn't they have done it at every mass shooting? Why is this one special? It makes me wonder if they were actually involved. Number 13. Apparently Paddock had earned millions of dollars through real estate deals. If he was so wealthy, why would he all of a sudden snap like that? See, I have watched enough, to use the term, of shows like Criminal Minds and all of that, to be aware one of the things law enforcement looks at when you have somebody that starts to kill or whatnot is they look for what was it that drove them over the edge? What was it that started them doing whatever they were doing? And that is where I am just, wait a minute. Something just isn't adding up. Number 14. Why did he move so frequently? It has been reported that Paddock had 27 different residences during his adult life. That's a hell of a lot of moving. It's one personally I don't like to move. I couldn't imagine having 27 different residences in my adult life. Number 15. Why were nearly all of the exits out of the concert venue completely blocked? I did not know about that, but if that was the case, that would raise serious questions as to why. Why would they block the exits at a concert venue? Because to me, that's a fire hazard. It's just, you don't block exits at any time. That's what good is having an exit if you're going to block it? Number 16. Why was a country music festival chosen as the target? Was the goal to kill as many Trump supporters or other conservatives as possible? And is there any evidence that Stephen Paddock was connected to Antifa in any way? Interesting. But then on that same page, down at where the comment section is, someone says this. So much shit in the narrative being presented, this whole timeline stinks. And they have added questions. Number 1, how was the shooter able to utilize bipods when he was shooting down at the angle he was shooting? He could not have been shooting from the back of the room due to the elevation and angle down to the target. Number 2, why use scopes and bump fire modified rifles firing semi-automatic? Well, part of with the aspect of firing anything on like semi-automatic to automatic, one thing I know from my time in the military is after that first shot, the barrel of the gun will start to rise because of the recoil. So all you're doing, if on semi-auto to full auto, is spray and pray. You're just shooting. You're just putting down fire. You're not actually aiming at a target. That's why when I was in the Army, we had what was the burst, 3-round burst. I never used it because I had enough trouble shooting with single shot, let alone to try to do 3 real quick. No. Because when you have a weapon and you fire once, you have to regain your sight picture, you have to control your breathing, your trigger squeeze, so forth. Otherwise, you're not going to get near the target. Number 3, why was the sound of the rifle so eerily similar to the M240B belt-fed mag that the sound of fire doesn't seem in any way similar to the arsenal presented in any of the photos? I'm not a gun expert, even though I was in the military. I don't know. I can't tell by listening what a weapon is necessarily. Number 4, where is the black powder residue from nostrils and mouth due to suicide by firing a bullet through his mouth? That would be a good question because there would definitely be gun residue. Number 5, why is there a gun laying across his leg after death? Well, he surely wouldn't have put it there. Number 6, where are all the photos of the mounds of used casings? That is something that is of interest for me and my girlfriend, and really anyone that has been in the military. Because anyone that's been in the military would know when you fire a weapon and you fire a lot of rounds, one thing you are going to have a lot of is brass. I've spent quite a bit of time on gun ranges because I can't shoot for shit. The thing is, I've fired quite a few rounds, and every time I was at a range and firing an M16, there was all kinds of brass that needed to be picked up. There was even one point after everyone was done qualifying, the tower had told us they had ammunition to burn. Because one of the things that I found out when I was in the Army is the Army has an allotment of ammunition that they get every year to have people qualify. If they would not use all of it in one year, the next year they wouldn't have as much. They would have less ammunition sent to them. So their attitude was, if we have it, we have to burn it. Which, personally, I regard as extremely wasteful, but it gave me the opportunity to just shoot. And we were shooting into an empty field, and there was one point, every so often, when you would have a lot of guns firing at one time, the field would catch fire. And when that started, it wasn't a big fire, it was just a small fire out in the field. And sergeants that were around me had said, shoot at the ground, right in front of it. And I was like, okay, I can hit the ground. And when you hit the ground in front of a fire, what you're doing is you're kicking up dirt onto the fire. You can actually use a gun and ammunition as fire suppressor. If the fire is in a field of any kind where there's dirt around it, and I didn't know that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But when the tower, they didn't know what the sergeants had told me, and they just flipped out over the fact because they thought I would just play it. And when they yelled for me to stop, I stopped. But it was just one of those, we had a lot of brass to be cleaned up. If all of this shooting was being done from that hotel room would have been littered with shell casings. That is it's an undeniable fact. And Mac had said spray and pray is exactly what he was doing. The bump stock fires a semi-automatic much, much faster than the finger can. I haven't listened to the tapes. I don't care to. That was full auto fire rates into a large dense group. I get that. The only thing that I am there's a lot of things I'm questioning with the narrative. And the big thing is where's the used casings? Where's the brass? Because there should have been a buttload. And from every picture I have seen, there is very little brass in that hotel room, which raises serious questions with me. Because it's one of, what was he, basically, where was all of the, because if there was that much firing going on from that hotel room, we would see some evidence in brass. But number 7, where are the photos of his hands after firing so many rounds of ammunition? They should show visible gun residue unless he used gloves. That is true. But then the gloves that he would have used, if he had gloves on, would have serious gun residue. And so far as I have been told, there's been no one come forward saying that they have gloves that he wore or examining the hands for gun residue. Then number 8 is a very valid point. Well, it's not Mac. It's not wild speculation to say where's the brass, because there should be a buttload of brass in that room. That's not wild speculation. That's just a sheer fact. I've fired a lot of rounds. I know what ranges look like when people are shooting, especially when you're just shooting ammunition to waste ammunition. There is a buttload of brass to be picked up. So much that when we would go through and pick things up, initially, most of us would just be putting it in our hands and so forth, or using our helmet to pick up brass. But it's all a matter of, and there were times with your helmet, I would have my helmet full of brass. That's not wild speculation. That's just a fact. When you have that, and the amount of rounds that would have been expended in this, you could easily have filled a helmet that a soldier would have with that brass. Easily. But then there is the very valid point, and it's not wild speculation. In order for him to have fired that much ammunition from that hotel room, he would have had to have gotten a massive amount of ammunition up to the hotel room. Without being on video camera doing this, how would that have been done? How would you get mass ammunition into a hotel room to pull off something like this without being noticed? Especially somebody that is 64 years old. That is a big one in there as well, because it comes into how much stamina and endurance would this person, a 64-year-old, have, because it raises the question, how many trips would he have had to make up and down to bring in that much ammunition? And wouldn't that in and of itself, even if he was using a duffel bag or whatnot, wouldn't that have raised suspicions? Wouldn't it be on camera? Number 9. Why the fuck does he transport that number 8 and 9 are identical. But they have number 10, and I don't know if Hillary Clinton had said this, but how the fuck did Hillary know that there was any suppressor or silencer involved in this incident at such an early time? Did she get a plan of attack before it was carried out? I didn't know anything that she had said anything like that. Then number 11 is, how the fuck does a 64-year-old with a shitty physique carry out an operation like this? Look at the video of him slipping on the floor. This guy is not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Number 12, what happened to the 13 scar/tattoo clearly visible in the photo of him compared to the after-death pictures? And that person's number 13 is, why was the concert area lit up like daylight after the shooting started? I didn't know it was lit up and so forth like that after the shooting began, but if it was, that would have questions in my mind as to what's going on. The big thing that I want to stress is, I don't want anybody to get the idea in this that I'm saying that I buy into a conspiracy, only that the official story, what we're being told, doesn't add up. There are holes. There are massive holes. And if a story is going to be put out that is so blatantly full of holes that you can look at it and ask a very legitimate question like, where was all the brass? That is not a minor point. Because the limited amount of brass that I've seen in that pictures from that hotel room would indicate to me that very little firing actually occurred from that hotel room. Because think about it, people. Every bullet would be a piece of brass. Every shot. And if you're having hundreds of rounds a minute going off, you're having hundreds of shell casings, brass, flying out of that weapon. That would make a pile real quick. And yet, there's no evidence of mass brass in the room. That's a problem. Because there's just, I don't know what happened in Las Vegas other than there was a shooting. But the idea that it was orchestrated by a 64-year-old, I'm not buying that narrative because it doesn't fit the evidence. There's too many questions regarding the official story for me to buy into the official story. There's too many loose ends. A big hole in the official story that every police investigation has is motive. What was the motive? That is the first thing police try and look for, is what was the motive? And then right in line with that is, what was it that caused the person to snap or decide that this was the time basically to take action and do something? What was it that brought about that change? And to leave it vague as the official story has, it doesn't satisfy me. It doesn't mean that I'm going to totally buy into a conspiracy theory, but it does mean that I'm regarding the official story as questionable. Because when you have an official story that is as full of holes as this one is, it leads to use the term, conspiracy theories arising, just like 9/11 does. But one thing before potentially getting off on other things is, this is a meme I had seen that I thought was epic. Trump should tweet something anti-gun. I just want to see the liberals defend the Second Amendment. That made me chuckle. Because it does seem, anything Trump says, the liberals are quick to be saying things against whatever he said. Because I find it interesting, this is a bit beside the point or off the topic of the gun issue, but with the FBI director, James Comey. Before Trump fired him, the Democrats and the left were saying Comey should be fired. Then when Trump fired him, they were all outraged. Oh, how could he fire him? Wait a minute. You assholes were just saying a week or so before he did that Comey should be fired. Now that when he was, you're, oh, Trump's trying to hide something. What? I'm not a Trump supporter by any stretch, but I'm also not an idiot supporter. And that's what it seems with the media and so forth, and the left, that's what we're being fed. Is they're playing people for, let's see how stupid they are. Because there is just so much with the official story that I question. It's one, Mac, I'm with you on the aspect of wild speculation being a problem. But there comes a point when you have major issues like the brass and the aspect of how did he get the ammunition up there in the first place and all of the guns. Those are big questions. Those are big questions that can't just be ignored. And when there isn't a satisfactory answer, it is something that I feel it is wrong to just go along with the official story as it is to just go along with a conspiracy theory because you don't have another explanation. I don't like the I don't know so X. No. If you don't know, you don't know. But when it comes to things like I don't know where all the brass was in that room. I sure as hell have not seen any pictures that would indicate to me that that's where the firing took place from. If the brass wasn't in that room, the shooting did not happen from that room. I can definitively make that statement as a fact. If there were only, from what I had seen, like pictures of a dozen to half dozen rounds of brass in that room, that's all that were fired from that room. So where was the other? Because there have been speculations of a second or so forth shooter, which would raise the question to me, where is the brass? If the brass would actually be on the ground, that would mean somebody on the ground was shooting. Or was there another room that was involved? I don't know. And the problem is we have not been told anything other than the official story of this one shooter. But so much of the official story doesn't add up. And that's the problem. That is a huge problem. But I would be curious to know what your thoughts are on what I have raised, what I've mentioned. Because the aspect of, because I can speak to the aspect of carrying weapons, because I've done it when I was in the Army. I had carried an M16 at one point and a saw. And just carrying two at one time is, in a sense, it's a bit tricky. Now, you can carry multiple, like M16s and so forth, but you're not going to conceal them. How would you get over 42 or 40 or more rifles into a hotel room without being seen on camera? That really baffles me. How do you do that? It just, because it also raises the question, even if, to use the term, they wouldn't have seen the rifle, if you're carrying something big enough to conceal a rifle, there should be some evidence on video. There should be a lot of evidence on video of those weapons being transported or that something being taken up to a hotel room. Because one of the things I'd seen a meme on, and I didn't grab it before I started this, but was the idea of pretty much you can't even scratch your nuts in a casino without somebody seeing it on video. Yet we're supposed to believe that he got over 40 plus rifles and who knows how much ammunition up to a room without being seen on camera. And why did it take the police 72 minutes to get there? That does seem a bit strange. Well, what really happened, what we know happened was people were, like 50 some people were killed and hundreds wounded. But what was the purpose of it? I'm honestly not sure. Your guess is as good as mine on that. Now, if we would take the ISIS claim and say that that has any legitimacy, then they were behind this attack. And like I mentioned earlier, the idea I heard about ISIS claiming responsibility for this right after it happened, and initially I did dismiss that, and I just kind of rolled my eyes at it. But the more I thought about it, the more it was one of, wait a minute, ISIS didn't try to claim credit for Columbine, Sandy Hook, any of these other mass shootings, but yet they are for this one? Why? What's different about this one than those others? Why is this one special that it would have ISIS saying that they want to take credit for that and not these others? It's one, I'm not saying that I'm automatically believing something because ISIS said it. No. I'm only asking the question of why this one? Why here? Why not over here and over here as well? What is special about this? And that is something that what I feel has to be taken into consideration is the anti-gun hysteria that always follows this. Always. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how many laws you have regarding guns, you cannot stop someone that is intent on breaking the law. No matter how many laws you have, you cannot stop someone intent on breaking the law from getting things that are against the law. Because if they're gonna break the law in the first place, why the fuck would they care if it's legal to have something? Their intent is not to obey the law in the first place, so why the hell would something being illegal or banned matter? All that we can say that things like this have caused with this bump stock and so forth is, from what I have heard, bump stocks have been flying off the shelves. That people are buying them left and right before they get banned. So what this has really, in a sense, caused is a surge in people buying the very thing that supposedly these anti-gun people don't want them to have. That seems to be going counter to what they were going for. But yet, that seems to be what we have with every case, every part of, to use the term, the liberal agenda. At every turn, they think we do X, this is going to happen. The exact opposite happens. The liberal media and so forth were convinced Hillary was going to win the election. She didn't. And the liberal media was convinced that they were going to find some Russia connection. They didn't. The evidence wasn't there. Over and over and over again, what we see from the liberal media is they take a stand on something, they're wrong at every point. At what point are we going to say, wait a minute, what is their agenda? Because I have a hard time believing that people, to use the term, that even like the liberal left and so forth, that they're actually this stupid. Because, like, one thing, it's an unrelated subject to a point, but it's similar with the aspect of publicity to something. When Judas Priest was on trial for their album Stained Class, because those two kids one blew his face off, the other blew his head off, after listening to the Stained Class album for like 8 hours and smoking pot and drinking beer and so forth for that time, and then they decide for some fucked up reason to go out and kill themselves. And the first one got his face far enough under the rifle that when he pulled the trigger, that he killed himself. The other jackass, after watching his friend blow his head off, apparently didn't have the gun back far enough and he just blew his face off. But during that trial, for one, I think it was Rob Halford was the lead singer for Judas Priest. He was sleeping in court when that was going on. But their album sales were through the roof. When Ozzy was on trial for people bitching about his song Suicide Solution, his album sales through the roof. Whenever you have publicity to something, what you end up causing is an upsurge in interest in the thing you're bitching about. It raises, I understand the aspect of wanting to talk about something, but I think to some degree the media, they take it over, they go way overboard with it because they have it as the narrative and it is pushed 24/7 for so long that sooner or later people are going to look at it and go, I'm going to look into that. Because it's like, I've seen videos where it says in the video, websites, do not check out these websites. I will admit that I have, while watching those videos or listening to them, gone through and been basically checking out every single one that they say, don't look at this. Because when you tell someone don't do something, the first thing they're going to do, most times, is the very thing you're telling them not to do. Let's be clear. This is not rocket science. It has been tested and it has been proven where people have put on a video, don't watch this video, and people will click on it. It has also been pointed out that, I heard this when I was listening to the radio when I was doing security, the aspect of what causes a program to be basically having higher ratings than others is a warning at the beginning. if there is a warning of graphic content or adult material or whatnot, viewer discretion advised. The number of people watching it rises. More people watch it when there is a viewer discretion. Ooh. Because it's the, what am I going to see that I'm not supposed to see? It causes people to be curious about whatever your program is going to be about. And this is something that if the media is not intent and doing things to play to this, and they're trying to do things for the opposite of, we don't want people to do X, but we're going to talk about it all the time, that makes no sense, because that goes against human nature. And I'm not, even though I was in the Army, I don't have any guns. None. I have no desire to have any guns. Don't like guns. Because I don't know if I've said it too often, but I do have the attitude of, if I'm angry enough to shoot somebody, I don't want them to die that fast. That type of thing. There's also the fact of, I look at guns as being, one, too noisy, too quick, too messy. I am more one for blades. And there was a news article I had seen of, I think it was in China, like 33 people were killed with a knife. Yeah, you can do a hell of a lot of damage with a blade. You don't need to have a gun to do a lot of damage to somebody. Because even my prop here, it's not a knife per se, it's a letter opener is what it is. There's no real blade edge to it, but it does have a point. That even with, the edge to this is not sharp. But if this were thrust at somebody, guaranteed you're going through. Especially you hold it like this and you forcefully stab, you're going to stab somebody. It's going to go through. It doesn't need to be sharp. Just the fact that there is a point on this son of a bitch. And just the amount of damage that this could do, that you could do with something hacking and slashing like this. Yeah. You can't totally take away the risk to a society. You can't. As long as people have pretty much the ability to do anything, they have the ability to go off the rails and just start killing, hacking, slashing. You don't need to have a gun. It can be any weapon in the world. It can be anything from golf club, baseball bat. I mean, there is no limit to the amount of weapons that could be available. But I would be curious to hear, in a sense, your thoughts, and haven't had too many in the chat section on this one, but it's something that I would like to know what you guys think of what I've been putting out. Because with the aspect of like the Las Vegas shooting, I just have a few key questions like, where is all the brass? The aspect of the shell casings, the brass, which would be about that big, by about that thick. Where are they? There is also basically who benefits from this? Where's the money? Looking more like a pasta to me. Oh, a creepy pasta? Yeah. I wish the authorities would release more photos, for Christ's sake. Oh, absolutely. But the problem with their, if they would release photos, is if of the photos I've seen, like the hotel room and so forth, there's only been like a handful of brass. And the problem would be if they don't have the photos of the hotel room with a mass amount of brass, that doesn't fit their narrative. Then they're not going to release something that would seemingly undermine their story. Oh, Patsy, Lee Harvey Oswald, possible. Oh, the aspect of the Paddock being a patsy, absolutely. From what I've seen with this and the aspect of like over 40 rifles, and I've heard estimates of like 2,000 rounds of ammunition, and a picture. I'd seen a picture of pretty much what that amount of ammunition would look like, and it was pretty much a skid of ammunition boxes stacked. And the idea that a 64-year-old would get that up to like a 32nd floor hotel room, yeah, I would call bullshit on that too. Because having been in the Army, I know how much, in a sense, work it is to lug around ammunition just to load it into like the back of an LTMV, let alone to lug it up 32 floors and not have it be seen on camera. That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And yes, I'm glad you agree about but it was also, I can't totally take credit for it because I had seen a meme about it that you can't even scratch your nuts in a casino without them knowing about it. You can't fart without them. Yeah, exactly. They're very quick on the aspect you can't count cards, you can't do shit without them knowing because they're watching your every fuck move. And you're on camera constantly. Why is there no video of him taking this stuff to this room? These are questions that they need to have an answer. Because what it would indicate to me is somebody was fucking sleeping. Somebody was either sleeping or somebody was fucking in on it. And that they were told pretty much ignore this for this period of time. But it would also have to be, if there's no evidence of cameras, that cameras would have had to have been turned off because cameras don't give a shit. Even if you have something that cameras are recording, it doesn't matter if it is authorized and so forth. The cameras will still record because the cameras don't care. Cameras aren't just going to be recording what you want or what you aren't aware of. They record everything. So to act like we're not going to have any video evidence of the lead up to this, that doesn't make sense. But I don't like conspiracy theories, but I don't like the bullshit that seems to come from mainstream media either. It's one, I'm not a gun person myself, as I have said, but I am also not one for, to use the term, giving up the freedoms. No. Because what runs through my mind is the aspect of basically the way you boil a frog is you put them in a pot of water and you slowly turn the temperature up. Very slowly increase the temperature. And you'll boil the frog. And it seems that pretty much that's what's being done with the mainstream media and us, is we're the frog. We're in that pot of water, and it's just, we're going to slowly turn it up. Turn up the heat. And it just, I don't know. I don't like to use the term wild speculation, but I also don't like glaring unanswered questions. And it's something that I wish we had more answers, but unfortunately it seems we have what we're going to have. But I'm probably going to do another live video tonight because the choppers are in and they ain't coming out anytime soon. And to give you guys an idea of the other video that I have in mind was earlier today I had come across a video where I heard somebody saying to Hillary Clinton about she was the first woman to run for president, and I had the thought hit my brain of, that's bullshit. And the truth of the matter is, I looked it up, and she was far from the first. What surprised the fuck out of me in what I had found in that regard, the first female to try to run for president, I hope you guys are sitting down. The woman ran in 1872. And the person that was going to be, who was her running mate to be vice president, would have been a black man. That was something that, and I had also seen, and I'll have this information when I do that video, and I'll probably do that one live as well, is if a woman showed up at that time to vote for her, even because women couldn't vote, they would be arrested. That is damn near what we're at today. And that was back in 1872. But it's just, there's things with that I was like, this is fascinating. That back in 1872, there was a woman that was pushing for the women having equal rights as men. So even though the society at that time was not receptive to it, it didn't mean that the desire for equality was any less. It's something that I find interesting. But feel free for those that are watching this after it is live, feel free to leave your thoughts and so forth in the comment section. Well, talk to you later, people.